Hello, and we're live. I'm here with Daniel from Xano, and yeah, we're ready to go live with our live stream. Today, we are going to be building a no-code website builder with Toddle and Xano. And before we get started, we know there's a lot of people who's going to tune in from either Xano's live stream on YouTube or Toddle's YouTube channel. So we think we just quickly do an introduction of like who we are and what is Toddle, what is Xano, and then we'll dive into the build after that. So Daniel, do you want to start with the introduction of who you are and what Xano is?
Sure. Let me just double check. Would you mind sharing my screen?
There we are.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. My name is Daniel Petro. I'm a developer advocate at Xano. You can follow me on socials right there. And at Xano, our mission is to empower anyone to create scalable, world-class software. And the way we do that is through offering a robust backend. And software as we know it today is kind of split between the front end and the back end. Of course, today we're going to be using toddle for our front end, and this is everything that the user sees and interacts with. As far as the back end goes, we offer a dedicated server deployed regionally with a flexible PostgreSQL database and ways to create APIs through visual development. You can pause the video and go to any of these links right here. And thank you. That's it.
Excellent. Excellent. So, yeah, I'll do a quick intro as well. My name is Andreas. I am one of the two co-founder of Toddle. And Toddle is a visual front-end framework, we like to call it. It's essentially a tool for building front-end applications using visual development. And we're also currently in the process of taking the whole platform open source. So initially, you'll be able to self-host your application built in Toddle, and eventually we'll open source at some point in 2025. We'll open source the whole editor, so you can actually run the whole setup yourself. And one of the reasons why I'm just going to switch here. One of the reasons why today we've invited the Xano to come and join this live stream is because we want to build a no-code tool. We want to showcase, we recently shipped some new changes to the way Toddle works with APIs, and especially some of the tricks we can do around server-side rendering of content. And for that, we need a really fast backend, because if you're going to server-side render your pages, you want a really snappy load time. That's kind of half the point. So therefore, we're going to want a backend that can deliver and can push data really, really quickly. So, Daniel, should we get started by looking at the backend setup? I think it at least in my personal preference, I always like starting with the data model and starting with the backend, and then adding the front end on top afterwards.
Yeah, sounds great.
There we go.
All right, so here I'm just showing the dashboard, and you can see that me and Andreas have been busy testing and making sure everything is ready for the live stream. I'm going to have a few tabs open here. So we have a very simple backend structure for this demo, and we're essentially just have a few different fields, and then we have all the majority of what's going on in this JSON field. Other than that, it was super easy to collaborate with Andreas because of the automatically generated Swagger documentation, making it easy for the backend and the front end developer to pass information back and forth and exactly see. So this is like the main endpoint that we're going to be using here. Other than that, I just built out a few. All of these were kind of automatically generated CRUD endpoints for the tables. And then I made a few modifications and built this one out for us to use. Pretty simple. And you can take this as far as you want and make it multi-tenant and turn this into a SaaS based off of what you see here today.
So one of the things I've kind of always loved about Xano is like, as a developer, like I rely a lot on documentation, but I never enjoy it, right? So it's always been really nice that when you build something in Xano, like you can really just go and copy the endpoint URL, and you've always just been able to go and click that one button on screen, copy the endpoint, it'll paste it into toddle, and it just kind of works. But because Xano automatically generates documentation using this open API specification, also called Swagger, it's actually even easier now, right? So we've made it even simpler to get started. So yeah, anything else we want to dive into with the backend? Yeah, maybe just show that like you generated this, but also we have a authentication API group as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Good call out. So if I go over to my APIs here, we have this authentication folder essentially with our authentication endpoints. And these are automatically generated for you as soon as you create an authentication table. And when you like start a workspace or project, it can do that for you. And if you look here, we can see basically how it works. We have our email and password inputs, and then we are just checking for a record in our user tables and making sure that, you know, we're not, that the user exists. And then we're validating that password. And if it passes, then we're going to give them the auth token. And you can easily see Andreas's request history right here. And I'm not going to open this up and show you his auth token for security reasons.
That's good. It's a top secure app we've been building, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice. That's perfect. So I think because we're going to jump a little bit back and forth because we're going to need some other we're going to need some more data, but let's maybe just start with the basics of having the user sign into the application and get that working with Xano, right, and toddle. So I'm going to share my screen instead. And here I've opened up a project. I've started a little bit because it's a relatively large project, so we're not going to show how everything gets built today, right? We don't really have time. But what we are going to do is we're going to share everything afterwards. So this is going to be an open project. You can go and clone it and see how we build everything. And I think Xano, you said you would, or Daniel was your name from Xano, you said you would share your snippet as well, or create a snippet for it, so people can basically just copy it.
I'll create a snippet that includes all the endpoints used in the tables, and so you can just one-click install it on a Xano workspace and get going with the front-end template from Toddle.
Excellent. So if you're after this want to like play around with this, think it's going to be a fun project to build, you can literally just clone both projects and get up and going right away. Right. So this project is set up a little bit funnily or weirdly, if you will, in Toddle. So we have this homepage. Right now it's not showing anything, but we actually only have one page on it, because that one page is essentially going to represent any page that our website will show. So in Toddle, we have this concept of path parameters, and we're basically saying here, we're defining what path, what URL should this page be on. And we're saying it should be a parameter that basically say it could be anything. Like it could be about, it could be users, it could whatever you essentially want to put in there. It's going to render this one page. So we're essentially building a single page app in this case, because it's going to be the same content in Toddle, the same page in Toddle that renders every possible page we want to throw at it. And then we're going to use the data we fetch from Xano to dynamically render the whole website on our page, right? So every part of our website, every part of our page is going to be completely dynamic, right? I've added also this little admin query param that basically means if you say at like question mark admin equals, for example, editor, it's going to actually show you the editor for that page you're on. And you can also do question mark admin equals login, and it'll get you to the login screen. So that's what we do now. So you can see the login here is actually not its own page, because all the pages are taken by the website. No matter what your URL, your path you want, it's going to render that website. But we can use these little query params to still show these things. So in this case, I'm going to open up my sign-in component because it's kind of easier to work it here. One of the things that Toddle focus a lot on is this idea of components, where you basically break your whole application into smaller parts. So if anything you can build in Toddle, anything you can build on a page, you can build as a component. And then you can either use that to better organize your project, to have not have all your logic in one place, or you can basically reuse components, right? So maybe you have components you want to reuse a lot of places, like buttons or charts or whatever. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, especially when you're working with really large projects. And so I've already kind of built all the UI for today, because it does take more than 45 minutes to build a no-code builder in Toddle. We're not really one of those build an app in an hour. We are more focused on how far you can get in a week than how far you can get in a day, to be honest, right? So what I want to do here is that we mentioned these API like Swagger documentation, and we actually use that in our new API setup. So we have something we call API services. And so Daniel, can I get you to send me the your base URL for and maybe we should actually go to your screen and show how that's done for a second. So if you go and find the base URL for your authentication group and send that to me.
Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
I'm just clicking this copy base URL right here, and then I'm going to switch screens real quick and send it over to Andreas.
And I am just copying that. And now I can go in here and say, I want to create a new service, and I want to pick Xano, and I'm just going to paste in that base URL right there that I got. I'm actually going to call this Xano auth, because it is it's the auth service, and it quickly does a quick, and it does a quick check to make sure it all works. We can say, okay. And so what we can do is, when I want to go and create a new API, so I want this component to go and fetch, be able to call the actual login endpoint, right? So I'm going to go create a new API, and now I can see my Xano auth service down here, and it automatically fetches all the information from Xano. So it knows exactly what endpoints are there. In this case, I have my auth login. That's the one I use. It knows it's a post request. So it configures everything for us, right? Sets every part of the URL, and it actually also starts pre-filling the body, because it knows from Xano that we need an email and a password, right? It already knows that from the documentation. So I've cheated a lot throughout this project. So if there's bits that you feel like you're missing, why was that so easy? It's basically because it's pre-built. And again, we're sharing the project, and if you have any questions, you can come and ask us about it afterwards. So we do need to run through a little bit some of the building, but we have a ton of video about how to build in Toddle that you can reference after, right? This is going to be very much a focus on Toddle and Xano working together. So this form I've built here, the login form, I've bound these inputs up on some variables in Toddle, and that basically means that every time I type in this, or have it autocomplete for me, it's gonna automatically fill out the value every time I type. I'm not gonna open the password one, but it's gonna automatically update the variables, and technically vice versa. So that means now if I go and check, now that I filled out these inputs, if I go into my body, I can say email here, and then so much for hiding my password, since I'm now going to add it here. So it's good choice. It wasn't that secret, to be honest. In my defense, I want to say that Daniel made this password for me. I did not come up with the pass 123455. I'm sorry to throw you under the bus on this one, Daniel.
All good.
All good. Okay. Please wait till after the live stream with attacking the service, by the way. Right. So, but now that I have these variables, they're bound, I can literally just hook them into this object, because we already fetched all the information from Xano, so we know how to call this, right? And so the last thing I need to do is essentially, when I log in, I want to call this API. Right? So I'm going to go and select my form and say, when I submit this form, I want to call auth login. And we have a few more things before we go in and try this out. There's a few more things. So right now we have our sign in button. And then we have this paragraph I pre-put in here showing an error. I'm basically going to say, if my auth login has an error, just show that. We're not actually going to show the error because depending on your backend and how much you've done to set it up, it may or may not be the most pleasant error. So we kind of just want to show that there is one. I don't actually know what it sends back in this case, but in this case, we just want to show one. We could also bind it to the data if we wanted to, right? And then I have this signing in. And here I basically want to say, if this is loading, so while I'm making the request and the status of a change to is loading, like is loading becomes true, I want to show this here, signing in. And then last with this button, I basically want to only show this button if I'm not signing in. So I'm going to right click here, say show hide, and then I'm say auth, login, and then I could just add not afterward, which basically says if loading was true, then it's going to be false and vice versa, right? So let's go and give that a shot. I'm going to hit T to go into test mode. You can also press down here. And we already filled this out. I'm just going to do it again to make sure. I'm going to click. It's going to say signing in. And let's see what happened. We got a token. So in this case, it's actually somewhat safe to show the auth token because the secret part generally is off screen right now. So we don't have to be too worried. And also we just shared the password. So suppose it doesn't matter too much. So now we have this auth token. And the next thing we want to do is we want to save that securely in Toddle so that we can access it again in the future. And Toddle have a really special mechanism to do that. So we can go and say, whenever this API request is done, let's go and save that token. And so I can go into events here in my API panel tab and say on success. And then here we have our little formula. This is basically doing workflows, a little bit like we saw in Xano earlier, right? When you get a request, do this. It's very similar in many ways. And we're going to say, we're going to call set a session cookie. And our access token we want to set here is going to be our APIs, data, and then auth token. And then whenever it's done with that, we're just going to say, go to URL. And then here we want to say admin equals, because that's what we came up with for the last one, edit or editor. I'll figure that out in a second when I try it. I can't remember. But it's basically saying we're going to go to the same page we're on. We're not going to change that. We're just going to change this admin param to editor. This was the one that was logged in before, right? So let's go and give that a shot. We're basically just going to log in again. And by the end of it, it then comes up with a little notification saying it blocked the notification. So when we're in the Toddle editor, it's not going to automatically redirect you to a different page and take you out of the editor. It just lets you know that this actually worked and you can now go to the other page, right? So now let's go to the, I call that builder, I believe. Let's go to the home page again and check, right? So here we had the logic that said, if our admin is edit, then show this builder, right? Okay, let's go and give this whole thing actually a proper test before we assume everything just works. So if we're here, we can add our little admin param, and we're going to say, oh, login. Right, I'm going to push it already pre-fills. Now I do sign in, and when it's done, it takes me to the editor. Okay, so far so good. But we haven't hooked up any of the APIs to our actual editor yet. To do that, I need another service because this is in a different place in Xano. So we are going back to Daniel. So now we're looking at the. If you can tell us what we're looking at the main one now, right?
So yeah, I just went into our main folder and copied the base URL right here, just like I did before. And I just sent that over to Andreas.
Oh, there's another one. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to go and add another service. In this case, I think I'll just call it Xano because I think we're only going to have the two. And again, connection worked. And so now when I'm in my API panel, you can see I have two servers available.
You want to switch back?
I should probably switch back actually to actually showcase that. That would probably be better. There we go. Okay. Well, we'll just delete this one and add a new one. So I'm just going to add another Xano service here and paste the new URL in, and it checks again, right? And so now when we add an API here, we have two services available, and now we can see all the endpoints from our main here, and we can see all the auth endpoints in the top one, right? And I believe the one we're looking for here is actually first, I think I'm going to get out all the pages right here. So this is a public endpoint. We only have one now, so there aren't so many. But if we're adding more pages, this will just kind of list all of them. And then here in this little section, the top left, my idea was that we would list all the pages that was available. And I can do that by using this little repeat functionality in the toddle. This basically says, give me a list of items, and then I'll render this UI for every single item, right? So in this case, we're getting pages and data, right? And it then renders out this this little link for every one of them. And we can click that to actually go and edit that page instead. Again, in this case, we only have one, so it's a little bit for show, right? Let's go and fetch the actual page we're currently looking at. So one of the attributes I have here, so whenever in toddle you have components, you have these attributes. Basically, you can provide them data as an input, right? And what that basically means here is on my homepage, whenever I said we should show the builder, it also lets us know what the current path is from the URL. So right now we're just on a homepage / but it sends that along to the builder. So the builder already knows what URL am I actually editing. So we want to go and fetch this page from Xano based on the current path, right? And so we have one down here called page. It's a GET request. We're going to pick that one. And again, because Xano like specifies all the stuff they need on their end, like it automatically pre-fills everything we need here, right? We can just say parameter, and then here it says, well, I need a path. And we're just going to say, well, take the one from the attribute, right? And then it automatically fetches the data we want. And we actually have a bunch of sections already in from me testing earlier. We'll go and delete them in a second. So now we've gotten the page, and we've gotten the list of pages for our index up here, right? And now we need to sort of render in the builder what actually content we're currently working on. And so I've got this list. I'm using a lot of different packages and libraries to make my life easier. So in total, you can install third-party packages. This particular one is made by an agency in Germany called Spark, and then made this drag and drop package that makes like any sort of drag and drop UI really easy in toddle. And I'm using that as a sort of the centerpiece of this builder. And again, I'm using this little repeat item here. And I'm actually gonna, that's not at all what I want to do. I actually want to save this in my page. Let's take a step back. Whenever I fetch this data, right, I can obviously access it directly from the API, as we did just a second ago with the pages. But since I'm building a editor, I'm gonna want to like add a lot of updates really quickly, and I don't necessarily want to wait for me to send data to Xano and then get it back again before I see that change. Because that, even though it's really fast, like the load times are fast, when you're in an editor, it's going to feel a little bit laggy. It's going to feel like it's a little bit behind, right? So what we're going to do instead is we're going to save it in a local variable in toddle, and then whenever we update it, we're both going to update the page variable, and we're going to send an update request to Xano. So we're still up to date, but we keep the data locally. And we can do that by taking this page and then just like we did before, whenever that request is a success, we'll go and say, I'm going to set the page and I'm going to use the page API data, right? Right, let's try that. And we need a quick refresh to actually have that success event again. And so now, because the UI was already set up to work with pages, it's sort of going to list all the stuff that came back from the API, right? It saves this to this page variable where we have a bunch of data now. And now it's rendering that in the center of the screen, right? In our case, I don't really want this here yet because I mean, technically, I want to start over building my site up, right? But right now I'm just seeing the last content from essentially the last time I was playing around with this editor, right? So the last bit we need to do to make our editor here actually work is we need to be able to update the actual data, right? So we're going to add a third API. And in this case, it is the put, this one, isn't it, Daniel? Yes, I believe this is right.
I believe so.
So in this case, we're going to say put from the pages. And in this case, we need to specify a bit of data. It says, okay, we need a pages ID. And we can see by the formatting here that it doesn't know what it is. We have to give it to the API. Luckily, we just fetched the page just a second before, so we can just use the data from that one, data ID. We already have it from the other API call. And then it already adds an authentication token header because Xano said, hey, this is a private endpoint, and you can't just come along and call that whenever you want. You need an access token to do that. So when we set our session cookie in the login, we actually saved our cookie in the browser in what's called a secure cookie. And we can see it here. We have a little cookie panel, and we can see we've got access cookie set here. We can't see the value of it because we're not supposed to be able to read it from the browser. So that's secret. Or at least from the JavaScript running in browser, you can't see it. You can obviously see it in the browser, right? But we can see here in the cookie panel that on this domain, we do have the access token cookie set. So it is available. And now here on pages, it automatically adds that header in, right? Like different APIs have different ways of specifying, but as long as the actual host provides the information about getting it, then we can sort of automatically fill this out. And of course, the last part is the body. And again, because it's well documented out in schema, it says, well, these are all the things you can specify, right? And in our case, technically, we're not updating all the data, but we can just send it along. So I'm actually just going to do page. So whenever I call this API, it's just going to say whatever your current value of pages or of all the data in that page variable, go and save that in Xano, right? So whenever we load the data from Xano, we save it in the variable. And then at some point, we can call this, and it basically syncs the data from the variable back to Xano, right?
And Andreas, can we hop over to Xano real quick and show them what that endpoint looks like?
Absolutely.
So it can give them a little better idea. So essentially, when I created this, I wanted to make sure the reason with authentication is I don't want anybody else editing a page that they don't own or that they're not an editor for. So I'm grabbing this record right here, and this contains a website ID. And all I did was I created this add-on which enriches what that ID means. So essentially, it's just an integer, let's say 1 for this case. And then I'm grabbing the info from that other table using this add-on. So what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that this person is the actual owner. So if their auth ID, the way Xano encodes the user ID within the token. So I can just select my auth ID here. And if it's equal to that pages1.websiteinfo.owner, otherwise I'm going to send them a message saying, hey, you don't have permission to edit this page. And then
Who are you?
Who are you? Exactly. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit the record. And what Andreas showed you, he's sending the entire data, right? But I made it a little more flexible. So if Andreas was only sending sections, I added these filters, first not empty. So it's either going to use the value that it already had if the input comes in empty, but he chose to send the entire object. So I made it flexible either way. So he had the ability to use it however he wanted on the front end.
Yeah. And this actually makes a ton of sense, because obviously I was lazy and just sent everything, but we might be two people essentially working with the same data. So it makes a lot of sense for me to only send the changes I actually made. So if, for example, Daniel was looking at the same page in his browser, well, he could go and make other changes to other part of that page, and it wouldn't override something I've done, right? So normally when you do this, you kind of want to say, well, I actually only want to send the difference, the actual change I made. And in our case, I just was a bit lazy and said I just send everything, right? But
Yeah.
that flexibility is really key, right?
Exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of using something like Xano is it's so flexible. There's so many different ways to do the same exact task. And it's just whatever makes the most sense for your workflow or for how you think about it and want to approach it. And I just also want to say is we built a very minimum version of what we're showing you, and you could take it as far as you want and even make this like a real-time collaboration tool where people are seeing each other's cursors moving around and everybody editing the same website, different pages and stuff like that. So it's incredible what you can do with these two powerful platforms.
Exactly. So we're showing just normal using, HTTP request. If you want to go and add something real time, you could set up a live setup on Xano, and you can connect to that with WebSockets from Toddle, right? We have a package so that you easily connect to WebSocket and send messages back and forth. And they operate like on a sort of order of magnitude faster than you can send a normal data request. So there's really a lot of opportunity. That there's not really anything I can think of that you couldn't build this way.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Absolutely. No, it was really good to get that in, a little bit of context, right? So now that we're here and we're calling this endpoint, we need to figure out when we call it. And we're sort of in this case where no matter what we change, no matter what we change, in the page, we want to sync it, right? And there's a lot of different places we make that change. So I've created a little workflow here, and just like when we submitted a form and we see this sort of workflow. Let's take this click event up here, right? We have this little selected workflow dialog that pops up. We can also create workflows that can be called. So you basically say, well, if I have 3 different places where I essentially want to do the same couple of steps, I can create this workflow and then just call that instead. So then I don't have to redefine the same logic multiple places. And I'm already in this workflow saving the page to the variable. So all I really need to do to make it work here is the call the update one, right? And this is all. Now, whenever I make a change, it's actually also going to update the call Xano with the update. So one little thing before we test that, I have a little, let's see where we have it. I have this little spinner down here. I've added a little custom spinner. And the idea is basically every time we're saving, I want to show that, right? So I'm going to change the show formula, and I'm just like I did before, going to say this update, and then whenever it's loading, I want to show this spinner, right? And it'll just, and right now, of course, we're not. So now let's go and see if it actually works. I've already wired up all the drag and drop logic and all these things previous. It's actually really easy to do with this package. You can check it out later. But of course, all the logic here is already built. So all I needed to do here was wire it up to the Xano backend, right? I'm going to go into test mode, and then I'm going to drag in a product feature section here. And you can see the second I did that, the little spinner came up short. and went away. And let's go and look at what the actual data said. It says, okay, we're not loading anymore, but it actually returns the data after it's saved at the updated version, right? Because that's what he told us to do, right? So it did a little bit of a call right when that happened, because what essentially happened in this case is that this list, whenever I drag into it, it calls this save page workflow, it updates the variable, and then synchronizes over to Xano, right?
Beautiful.
Now there's a few more things we can do here. So if I'm in test mode, I can also select one of these slides. So the website builder we're building here is like a very sort of, like, imagine simplified Wix, right? Really, really basic Wix style. Essentially, like, you have these predefined slides, and we've added some configuration options for them, right? But we very limit what you can do. Obviously, you can decide what level of complexity you want to build. In our case, we're building something quite basic, right? But so right here, I have all these. I have my title, I have my base text, and I have a call to action. So let's say I want to, so here, go and say, actually, I want to change this to let's go. But one thing you'll notice is that every time I'm typing, I'm getting a little spinner. Because every time I'm typing, I'm saving and I'm updating, right? And now, you know, that could, if we're by it now, if I start typing a lot, we're starting hammering Xano a bit, right? And I mean, you know, it can get worse. I can say, I actually have a color picker here, right? As I start dragging this, every time I move the cursor, I am sending Xano a ton of messages, right? And I mean, to be fair, Xano can handle it, right? It can handle us spamming it. So it's technically not a big problem, but it is a little bit unnecessary, right? If you start having multiple users doing this at the same time, at some point, it's going to be a problem. So we have a nice little feature in Toddle hidden here under our advanced section, which is called debounce. And what I can do here is basically say, I'm going to give that a 500 millisecond debounce. And so what I'm saying here is, like, I'm going to call you a lot, Mr. API, all the time. But what I want you to do is, if I want you to wait half a second and then call the API. And if any time during that you get another request, just ignore the first one and keep doing that until someone stops spamming you, and then just send the last request. So now if we, for example, take our background color here and start playing around with that, you can see we can change it real quickly, right? And drag around. And this would have been a couple of hundred API requests to Xano already. The second I stop and pause it for half a second, the API syncs up with Xano and Backend, right? So it gives this really nice little option of, like, being able to have, like, really visual, like, fully interactive editing, but without, like, overly abusing your lovely partner on the other side, right? So this is sort of the basics of the editor, right? I built a few features, and we can, like, let's go and add, for example, a pricing page here, right? And maybe we want to change so that the pricing page background color is gonna be like a, yeah, something like that, right? And here I've only just added a bunch of, like, text options and colors. Obviously, you can add in images or, like, any sort of configuration parameter you want. It's entirely up to you, right? Here we just kind of kept it simple. I think maybe we'll change the background color here to something a little bit less. Here we go, right? So yeah, I think this is sort of the first bit. Now we've built the editor, and of course, since we've been syncing to Xano, if I go and refresh my browser now, it's gonna redo that whole step from the start, right? It's gonna say, okay, I'm gonna fetch my page that I've saved. I'm gonna save that back into my page variable, so I have the latest version locally in my browser, and then I'm gonna render all that out, right? So it is saved. The final part of our little move here to build a no-code platform is, of course, it's all fine to be able to, like, build the page, but if we can't show it, then I mean, fundamentally, it doesn't matter too much, right? So let's go back to our homepage where we have a big blank screen. So if we actually show, we can preview here in a new tab. Like this is our website at the moment, right? Even though we spend all that time building, there's nothing there because we haven't actually instructed it how to render our website. Right? So we're going to close that, both of those. And right here on this page, we need to go and actually fetch the data again. So that every time we load the page, we're first fetching the whole page configuration from Xano, and then we're dynamically rendering everything there. Right? So I'm going to add essentially the same API again, my page API, and I need a path parameter. In this case, the way toddle works is when you ask it for a path parameter, it actually removes the / because it's usually the word after the / you're interested in. But the way we set up Xano, we need to add one. So we're going to concatenate. Ooh, if I can type, concatenate. I'm going to add a / first. And then after that, we'll add the path. In this case, because it's the base path, in essence, we're just sending this one, right? But if that path became like admin, whatever user about, right, it would go and actually make sure it fetches the right page. And we can see the data comes in here now, and we're showing we're loading the page with all the sections, right? And now I have this little section right here, tag that I put in. And I'm going to go and repeat that. So the idea is here for every single section on the page, let's go and render out the right one based on the data from our API, right? So we're going to say data and then sections. And the second we do that, it start repeating this section. And I already ahead of time pre-filled in all these sections. And these little I's just basically means I'm going to say for this item, and is that actually this kind of template? Is this the right template to use for that section or not? And if it isn't the hero section, in this case I'm rendering, then just ignore it. And it'll go and check if it's one of the other sections, right? So I have all the possible sections that can be, and it just iterates through. So it'll render. Oh, what did I do there? I think I hit a wrong key. No, we're back. It's fine. It's all good. It's somehow not what I'm testing. Okay, that's funky. Let's yeah, there we are. Okay, I think it was just a bit lag. So one other thing I'm doing here is I'm actually passing in the information from that section to our template. And I can quickly cover, I think we have a bit of time. The basic idea here of the template is that it's a pre-built section in toddle, right? So in this case, I build one called hero section. You can extend this with as many types of sections you want. And all I did was saying, well, it's going to get one of these attributes in, which is all the configuration we stored in Xano. That's what we're passing into each of those. And it just uses that data to define things like the title text and the image for the hero image and the text here, and also all the CSS style variables, like all the colors, etc., is also applied right here, right? And again, we'll release everything so you can go and check out how it's built afterwards, right? Yeah. So now that we have this and we can actually render it, let's go and give it a go. We can see we actually have our, and it follows our styling because it picked that out of the data coming back, right? So let's go and have a look at how we've done here, right? So we're gonna run a quick Lighthouse. Oh, actually, let's just do it so we can actually see the result. Run a quick Lighthouse test on it and see how we do. So we should get the data pretty quick in the rendering. Okay. So we're doing pretty well for performance. We are okay. Document doesn't have a title element. That's fair. We haven't set that up. And on SEO, it doesn't have a title and there's no description. Let's actually go and fix that, because we did have page title data in our data on from Xano, right? Mm-hmm. So here on the page here, this is where you see attributes and components, but for pages you see the page data instead, right? We can go and set the meta title and the description. And in our case, we don't want to just type like landing page, something like. We want to actually use the data from Xano. So what should the title be, right? So we're again picking out the data from our page, and we're going to say title. And then we're going to pick out the description here from our page, and it's called description, right? Let's go and give this one a refresh. And we should see, oh, now it says landing page in the title. Should we try one more? Ooh, it's always exciting when the lighthouse runs, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh,
almost.
Okay, we're gonna rerun it. We're gonna rerun it just to see if we can, because we got 100 performance before. We can get there again. We can get there again.
Woo!
Oh,
Unbelievable.
yeah. So the reason why this is something we can actually do and why this works is because when toddle initializes this page, it's going to go through and look for any API that's set to be rendered on the server, right? And it's going to say, okay, I can see that this API call to Xano. It's going to go and initiate that call, fetch the data back from Xano, and then actually render the whole page. And it has to do all this in less than 0.7 seconds, right? Actually, 0.7 seconds is the first time it renders something. So there's a bunch of extra work there. It has to do this probably in around less than half a second to both check out the page in toddle, get the data from Xano back, and then render the whole thing in order to get this kind of result. So you really need services that can actually like deliver performance at that level to get to these kind of scores, right? And luckily, Xano is a really good choice there, right?
Oh yeah, and man, I can't wait till we release this template and see what people are going to build.
Yeah,
I'm guessing we're going to see some invoice generators or form builders, or even I want somebody out there to take on Beehive and create a newsletter builder or something. I can't wait to see, and make sure you tag both Toddle and No Code Backend Xano on socials when you do it.
Absolutely. So I actually, when Toddle went through the first fundraising, one of the VC investors we talked to asked a very interesting question that stuck with me since, which was, well, if Toddle is so powerful, you can build Toddle and Toddle, what would prevent someone else from going building a competitor? And at the time, I felt it was a very silly question, but maybe in retrospect, maybe actually we shouldn't have let the cat out of the bag, Daniel.
Yeah.
Maybe this was a mistake.
Right.
Maybe people will clone this template and
hurry, delete the VOD. Get rid of the evidence.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what people build. We're getting towards the end. I don't think we have time to add anything to this, but I think we also got the most important things out. We have a big announcement at the very end that we hope you'll all stick around for, because we promise it'll be relevant and it'll be worth it. But before that, I would really like to see if there's any questions from the audience or from anyone following along, either on our YouTube channel or Xano's, that have anything you want to ask. One of the questions I could see already is whether it's being recorded. Yes, so these we are live streaming to both Xano's and Toddle's YouTube channels, so you can actually go and find this recording on either one of them. Do we have any? I know that I saw there was a question earlier on which one was the favorite package in Toddle. So we released packages almost a year ago, not quite yet. And it basically is a way for people to be able to build things in Toddle, whether it's like custom actions or full components or whatever you feel like, right? Pretty much anything you can build in Toddle can be put in a package, and then other people can just install it and reuse it for whatever they want, right? And so everything you saw with the drag and drop interface, me dragging sections into the page, that is entirely done with the package, right? There's a lot of fine detail logic and math to make that work, and track mouse movements and all these things. And I didn't do any of those things. I just installed the package and it handled everything for me, right? And we have a ton of community packages of people that build really, really cool things and sharing them for free in our package system. And you can just go and install it into your project. So everything you need. Right?
Yeah. Do you have any questions for the audience, Andreas?
Well, I have one question that came up here is, will the Xano snippet work on the free Xano plan?
Yes, it will. It is not using any paid plan features. And yeah, as you start to scale, you'd probably want to switch over to a paid plan if your product starts taking off, and we hope it does. And yeah, there's a ton of other features that I didn't discuss about Xano. Similar to packages, we have reusable functions. We have the new actions feature, which is a whole marketplace of different plug and play actions that people have created or functions. And yeah, I recommend attending the orientations that we hold every Tuesday. And if you go ahead and join one and let us know, you will get some free credit so you can try out some of those paid features as well.
Yes, we're getting a few. We're just getting comments saying the new service is awesome. Well, thank you very much. We very much agree.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a really good backend that provides all the information you need, then life just becomes a lot easier. And then I think we had one down here is, when do you plan to release the template?
I will get that out as soon as I can, hopefully today.
Yeah.
What about you, Andreas? When are you
It's a lot later here, so I'm definitely not getting it out today, but I will we'll get it out tomorrow.
For sure.
Excellent.
All right, we have a couple more questions. I know there's a way to kind of highlight them on the screen, but I think you have to do it on your side, Andreas.
Right. That might be a little bit beyond my. Oh yeah, no, there's the right here. So what questions should we be looking at? I want to see. Did you find a good one?
Orphan asked something that we already answered. If you excuse me, if you want to extend this to have collaborative features, how best can this be achieved? Like we said earlier with WebSockets, there's a toddle package for it. And if you just follow the Xano documentation on creating a channel, a WebSocket channel, it is super easy to do.
Right. And we actually got a question on Twitter while we were here, not directly for the stream, but for targeted at toddle and no code backend, or toddle and Xano specifically, right? So the question is, why adopt the term visual development instead of visual programming? Or because I think we both chose that as a sort of mainly go-to term, as well as Flow. I don't know. Do you have any comment on why specifically the term visual development was chosen as the new sort of defining umbrella?
Yeah, just a really high level right here. We actually have a blog post on this that you can go read, and I'll paste it in the chat. But yeah, just because no code and low code just really don't cover what it is our platforms do. And visual development encompasses a much larger area than just visual programming, because it covers the entire life cycle and development of the technology. And it contains things like architecture and all of that. So it's not just about the programming part of it. So that's why it's visual development, and it makes a lot more sense.
I think that's very well put. I'll just say the same. We've got a comment here from Tom saying, "I'm still searching for backend. Xano may be worth a look." It absolutely is. It's I think it's almost hard to ignore at this point in the sort of visual development space. But yeah, absolutely worth a look. Very impressed with especially the performance, which is something obviously we care quite a lot about. So we want to work with tools that make us look good when we do server-side rendering, right? We're only as fast as the data. Yeah, I think, and I think just another nice couple of comments around that this is a great tool stack, and I very much agree. I think it's we have a lot of users I know in Toddle in our community that use this particular stack and are building a lot of really cool things with it. So maybe we should move on to our, because we have a little bit of an announcement today. We wanna show. I'm actually just gonna copy maybe so we have it on page in view. Oh, actually, no, we're gonna have it on screen. We set it up nicely.
Awesome.
So a special announcement that we're rolling out today is that we have a competition going that starts now and ends on the 5th of December. So you can scan the QR code on the screen, or you can go to the URL on it. We'll also link it on the description, at least in the toddle video. You can find it on our website, all these things. And I think we'll get it up somewhere with Xano as well. And so the basic premise is that we want to see what you can build with Xano and Toddle, and the theme here is going to be build something with AI, right? So build something where you're using the fact that with the Toddle's new API connector, you can stream responses back, so you can build something really cool, as like these AI chat apps that we're seeing a fair few of now. That sort of live streams the generated response back to the UI, right? And Xano has actually supported that for a while. So now you can go and build these things, these really cool user experience centered around AI. We don't have any requirements to specifically what you're going to build. You can see all the specific of the competition, like by scanning the code or checking it out on our website. But the short version is build something that's fun, that we enjoy, that brings us joy. And then by the 5th of December, which is the last date, we'll draw a winner. Well, actually, our panel of judges, which I'm going to be one of, is going to find a winner, and we're giving away a brand new Mac Mini. So if you're curious about that, if you want to try the new Mac Mini, which is has sort of taken the world a little bit by storm the last couple of weeks, go and sign up. All you need to do, you don't even need to be on a paid plan for either of these services. You can literally just go and sign up for free, build a fun app. It doesn't have to be very big. Doesn't have to be complex. It just have to be something that makes us smile, but something that impresses us in one way or another. And then you have a chance to win. And I promise you that, like, even if you've never tried any of these tools before, you can absolutely pick it up, figuring it out, and execute on a fun idea in this time. You've got plenty of time to do that. So go and give it a try. Go and sign up to both Xano and Toddle today, and try and build a cool AI streaming app.
Yeah, and make sure to use the new Xano actions, because we've already built some of these actions specifically for connecting to OpenAI and that do different functions. So it's literally just a one-click, add it to your workspace, and it shows up in your function stack, and you can add it wherever you want.
Excellent.
I'll post a link to it in the chat. Are there any other questions we missed?
No, I think we're good as well. Again, like the videos are gonna be up from now, so you can, if you missed the first half or first part of it, I know a few people hopped in a little bit late, you can go and watch the first part already. And of course, make sure to join our competition and win a Mac Mini. Show us what you can do. Show us all your fantastic AI powered applications. One quick question, maybe. There's just the one sign up URL. We're not doing any sort of accrediting or anything. It's like anyone go in and sign up. It's all about being part of it, right?
Yeah, and if you want to, whenever you create your Xano account, it asks you what front end you're connecting to, and just go ahead and choose toddle there. If it's not already listed in the dropdown, just type it in, select other, and that will definitely help us. Great question, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Great. Well, we're coming up on an hour, so it's kind of a perfect time. I think we did we hit it spot on. I want to thank you again, Daniel, for hopping on and joining us and for doing this awesome competition with us. It's been real fun to build this with you, and I'm looking forward to building much more stuff in the future.
Same here, Andreas, and thank you so much. And we over here at Xano, we love toddle. I myself am a lifetime toddle user, so definitely appreciate you inviting us to do this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and the feeling's very mutual. Have a really good evening for those of you joining from Europe, and day, I suppose, if you're in the US. Excellent.